Web stores. You've seen what good looks like, but have you seen great? AppCharge is the direct-to-consumer platform backed by the likes of Supercell and built by monetization pros from Moon Active, Playtika, Huge Games, and others. People who know the difference. AppCharge powers over $500 million in transaction a year for top studios, optimizing every detail. Deeply personalized web store offers custom-made design, industry-leading monetization features, in-game payments, SDK, and more. 70% of the top grossing games already have a web store, but the ones scaling fastest, they're doing it with AppCharge. Learn more at appcharge.com.
Game devs. Here at Heroic Labs, we know that great gameplay is what players love, but integrating metagame features like challenges, progression, and rewards is crucial for retention and monetization. But coding them is a tedious and time-consuming process. That's why top studios have turned to Hero from Heroic Labs. Hero provides a complete suite of battle-tested metagame features that are quick to implement, letting you spend more time on the core gameplay experience. Ready to ship fully featured, engaging games? Check out Hero today at heroiclabs.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deconstructor of Fun This Week in Games, number 329, Game Industry News by Industry Insiders. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Donahoe. I play the marketing role on the podcast, and today there's three of us.
Monetization star, Philip Black, hailing in from Canada with Adam close by somewhere, I think.
Eric Kress, I got nothing. Strategy and investing.
Screaming at the clouds. Where is it? Okay, so here's what we got today. There must be some tariffs on celebrity sponsorships. So I have an update on Royal Kingdom and how much those things cost. Discord gets a new CEO before a potential IPO. Some shooter talk. We're talking about a new 4X game called King Shot right before we started recording. Maybe that'll eke in. Thoughts on the Gamecraft podcast. And so I think many of you know, if you don't already know, you should listen to Gamecraft. They're on season 3. It's Mitch Lasky and Blake Robbins. They do a great service to the industry. The latest couple, we have some thoughts. And so we will go through that at the end of the episode. I'm just going to go right into shilling. Just a few things to note. MAU, so for all of the marketers and even some non-marketers, MAU is in Vegas in 2 weeks, May 20th to 23rd. I'm actually going to go because I am going to be doing a very cool fireside chat. And I think everyone's actually going to want to hear this, even if you're a non-marketer. You're not going to want to miss it. It's the story we have been waiting to hear, but I can't officially tell you what it is yet because I think the confirmation comes today. So I'll probably go in Slack and announce it and then talk about it next week. Very excited to be asked to do that. Very honored, actually. Mishka wrote a blog post about Royal Kingdom marketing because that's how he trolls me now, is in a way I can't respond. So he goes and writes something. So check that out in the newsletter and the blog. And then an early tease, another thing I'm excited about, Neil Long from mobilegamer.biz is doing another event. He calls them Off the Record. They are 200-person gatherings. He did one in April in London. This one's going to be in LA because we have Summer Game Fest. So on June 10th, Neil and us here at Deconstructor of Fun are going to host the event. So there's panels and conversations and everything is off the record. I don't think anything's off the record with Cress, but it is what it is. So Cress, please come down.
I'll be there.
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
coming.
And Phil, bring the cats.
Yeah, I would say, Neil, for an event that's called Off the Record, you seem to take a lot of pictures and a lot of posts about this. I don't know. LA's a little far. Maybe London next time.
All right. Well, I offered, my friend. All right. Corrections.
Yeah, let's talk about the Oblivion remaster, right? So Eric last week said free on Microsoft Game Pass really limits upside. 1.5 to 2.5 million units makes sense. Game Pass, again, limits upside. This thing has exploded. 4 million players was the estimate from Bethesda. Now, that is players. That's not units sold. So again, they're fudging the numbers a little bit because you're going to get some Game Pass tourists coming onto the platform. But Steam has been estimated at 1 million units from Video Game Insights. And so if you're going to do a little bit of back of the envelope math, we last heard around 35 million Game Pass MAU for Xbox and around 120 million Xbox MAU. I think this gets you maybe another 1.5 million in Xbox unit sales. So that's already pushed you at 2.5 million in terms of units. And again, this is a full price game with the deluxe edition, thank God, with the horse armor edition. I think this thing gets to 3.5, 4 million by the end of the year. Like these Steam RPGs, like they last forever. Skyrim has been around forever selling units. Baldur's Gate is still a game that has pretty strong engagement on Steam and is moving units. No, he shakes his head in doubt.
Yeah.
This is fan service. This is like a one-shot done, dude. All the sales are going to be in the first month, like 90%. Maybe my estimate's a little bit low, but even then, then they'll bring it down to $20 and like, I don't know.
Here's the thing that's still interesting. Remember, they shadow dropped this, right? Very little marketing hype beforehand. Maybe they reduced marketing costs. And Jen, this is something that happened while I was at EA. Chris Bruzzo, the wonderful human being he is, was never, shied away from taking credit from this. But Apex Legends just dropped. I think people forget that overnight, literally, and did 50 million in the first week. I forget the exact number, but the explosion was impressive. And I guess I keep coming back to thinking about what a model would be for whether or not you shadow drop something or whether or not you don't shadow drop something. How do you even think about this, Jen?
No, it's a good question. And Apex is a great example. Like, no one ever did that before, but no one's really done it since. It's so difficult to do because everyone's like, how do we do that? And no one wanted to pay a streamer $1 million and then have them stop streaming a week later and then have the entire audience be like, oh, you were just paid to play this game. I am now no longer going to play. So there were a lot of downsides in that specific shadow drop instance. I think in this case, I think they were working on this game for like 4 years or something. Cress is right. You are playing to a fandom that loves this IP. And that's the answer is you can do this in cases where you've got a built-in fandom. I think they did a live stream. And I think that what happened was there was a live stream. It's kind of like old school Apple where the live stream, they're like, and now you can go play it. Actually, I think they did this at the Game Awards too, where they released DLC for the Viking guy.
God of War.
Oh, God of War. Okay.
It's Greek.
I mean, Kratos.
Greek.
Yeah.
Jesus. Not my IP. All right. So God of War.
I mean, I wish.
I think in cases where you've got a fandom, you've got eyeballs on a live stream, and you want to just, what a great call to action. Go play it right now. Oh shit. Like I'm hyped in the moment. Go play it. So I think that works really well. I think the challenge is when you do a shadow drop, the platforms need to make room for that. Like what if you were another game and you had just launched and you just got pounced on by this like shadow drop? You also have to keep it secret. You got to keep all your assets secret if you actually want to do that. Apparently this might have been all of that secret. So anyway, that's how I would think about it is if you have a insane fandom, you just want to switch on because you've got like a live stream or something to point them to it and nothing else is really going on. Budget standpoint too, it's a little bit cheaper.
But that doesn't describe Apex, right? Apex is an unknown IP. I mean, I guess it had enough of the Respawn, Enigma, and like Titanfall vibes that you probably throw it into that bucket.
I mean, so that was different, right? So that strategy, no one can really replicate, but they went out and locked in all of the top shooter streamers and paid them millions of dollars to on day one, just switch all of their streams to that. The knock-on effect, the reason why no one does it anymore is because they were shooter tourists. Everyone came in, checked it out, and then they realized that they weren't authentically playing it. And so for you, as the person I usually answer to, you're like, Jen, you just brought me shitty traffic.
Sounds like a Dream Game celebrity ad campaign. I don't know. A lot of riffraff brand installs.
Okay, fine. I'll transition to my correction. Speaking of marketing budgets. So I want to go back and talk a little bit about how much celebrities were paid because upon further investigation, it seems my projection for the total was 10 celebrities. That was incorrect. So guys, we're going to play Celebrity Marketing Price is Right. So get ready. The next item up for bid in the Showcase Showdown are 10 expensive celebrities and a digital campaign for a game that drove 4x installs since the launch and 11% revenue in tier 1 countries. What is your bid for the cost of the talent only, just celebrity only? And I gave you a hint last week.
Before we bet,
Yeah.
what was the total dollar increase on the revenue before and after this campaign? Just so we have a dollar reference figure. The percentages are irrelevant, right?
Oh, it's like $500,000 in tier 1.
Yeah,
It's really
right.
bad. Yeah.
Like
no,
$1 million. Let's say $1 million. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They've made an incremental $1 million since this campaign began. Just so let's go.
That's not the right way to think about it, though. They're buying LTVs.
Oh, it certainly is. It certainly is.
So yes, we have to wait. This is not Phil. Phil is actually correct on this.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
This is not direct. This is not performance app marketing.
Eric, go ahead. Lay out your case for this, which is why we should be paying attention to the short run revenue number when you're buying lifetime value.
Because these particular people that they acquired are the shittiest fucking audiences possible, and they are going to churn out as fast as they came in. And any incremental revenue that they generate from here on out is likely due to what they should have done from the beginning is fucking performance marketing, because then they get the right fucking audience, right? This cohort is the shittiest fucking cohort you could ever acquire for a mobile game, right? And so you can't possibly think they're going to be generating significant amount of money from these guys at this stage. Because even in 2 weeks, you would have seen conversion and spending, right, from this cohort, right, of, what did you say, how many people? 4 times the installs, right? I mean, insane amounts of installs, double the install rates, right? So that's what my point is.
By the way, the install rate's pretty low. So it isn't insane amounts. I mean, I would say that the lift is great. We didn't see lifts like this on the other campaigns from Squad Busters and Monopoly Go. So I will say that it looks like from a top of funnel, more installs are happening. I agree a little bit that sometimes when you go broad, you do get a lot of players that aren't going to be the best LTV, but you're going gold mining and you're going to find some nuggets of gold. It's a very expensive way to go mine for gold.
All right. Let's go back to your little fucking game.
Yes. How much do you think the talent cost?
All right.
10 celebrities.
10.
They're T1
$3 million
too.
each on average, because some get more than others, I would imagine, right?
Yes. Very much.
By the way, the fucking LeBron James ad was insane. Like, he's actually a decent actor.
He's funny.
It doesn't sound forced with him. It was good. Anyway, I want to reaffirm the fact that the ads were actually quite good.
Yes.
So I would say if they spent more than $3 million per $30 million total, I will throw up in my mouth if they spent more than that.
Okay.
It's just disgusting.
Your bid is 30
million.
Yes. Phil, what's your bid?
So 10 celebrities, T1 celebrities, Americans. I would say probably LeBron's the most expensive, and I'd probably go down from there. I'd say LeBron, maybe 5 million would be off the envelope for LeBron, going downhill from there. So what, 5 times 10, and so you get 50. All right, I'm kind of with Eric around this. I'd say probably around 30 million would be my guess.
Okay. Last week I guessed 15 based off of what I thought, again, the tiering, and yes, LeBron was the most expensive. So by Price is Right rules, you were both over.
Really?
So the number is around 25-ish. So you're not that far off. So it's 25-ish. LeBron
for the celebrities, though.
Okay, so let's do the brass tacks, the math here. It's not the brass.
That's just talent.
Yeah, that's just talent, right? And then the airplay, the spending on the actual ads themselves were not insignificant. So my $50 million number seems way low, right? So maybe it's 75, maybe it's even $100 million they spent to drive 1 million in revenue.
Yeah, I don't know. I that feels really high. But
really?
Yeah,
I mean, these ads are going out on the fucking NBA playoffs, right?
Yeah, like it's that's $1 million to 2 million placement. So I think the thing that I'm probably the most sad about as well is, as a marketer, you go into this being like, hey, I'm going to go and make all this additional digital creative. I'm going to put it in UA. I'm going to drive more installs with performance marketing. So the money I'm spending on those celebrities, I'm going to make it back in performance marketing. So I took a look at what is resonating right now for their performance using the Sensor Tower Creative Gallery. And listen, it is what it is. And that's the tool that I have. None of the celebrity campaigns are popping as getting the top share of voice in their UA creative right now.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say this one more time, and then I'm going to lay off of it. There is no fucking overlap between LeBron James and people that play this fucking game. Okay. This is fucking stupid. Okay. There's no way that can drive any additional new audiences that spend money on this game. It is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I'm a huge fan of LeBron. I think he's amazing. But that is not going to drive me to play some fucking puzzle game, right? It's just, again, it's a marketing fever dream. I know all these marketing guys love this stuff. I would too. Unlimited budget, hang out with the stars, watch them do their thing, you know? But just imagine, I've been in these rooms where these people talk about how amazing these campaigns can be and all these ideas and these fucking agencies coming up with the most harebrained fucking ideas, which is exactly what happened with this ad fucking thing. It's just dumb. That's it.
All right.
So to me, you've got to look at the uplift in Royal Match, not just Royal Kingdom, because there could be cross-contamination, right? People SEO. So that's one. Yeah, you got to look at that. You could be seeing decreased CPIs on, we call it performance marketing, but everything, again, is performance marketing. I'm surprised, by the way, brand marketers have conceded that term, because what does that make them? Unperformant marketing? And I would say the other thing you have to keep in mind is that Match doesn't have the same spend velocity as other games like Forum. So you're not likely to see short-run revenue impacts as large as you would have in those genres. Because remember, engagement is tied to monetization and Match. You're only syncing out currency as fast as you're completing levels. People complete levels at a pretty steady rate. I think there's a little bit more going on here, but I agree with you. This is rather silly.
Yeah. So, and I've said it a lot, and thank you, Phil, for recognizing that it isn't just looking at this graph. This is all we have. It's been not even 2 weeks. So there are other factors. I will say, though, that, well, first of all, I agree that I probably would not have spent this much on talent. I have not necessarily seen big talent creative like this be successful in our space. In fact, it's one of the most expensive talent campaigns. You know, it probably would rival Call of Duty in terms of like how much they actually paid talent. I don't know if I've seen anything like this in mobile before. And so that's why I keep harping on this, because it's like, holy shit, this is what we're up to now. But Phil, I play this game. I just cannot believe that the KPIs of this game would have warranted this. And like, why wouldn't you do it for Royal Kingdom? Like, I just don't understand. I don't understand.
Yeah, it actually would make more sense on Royal Kingdom, more established. Well,
yeah,
like this is early days for this game.
They did wait 5 months. As a player, like I said, I noticed that they put in the meta card system, which is a great, retentive product feature, but it's like nowhere near what Royal Match has to offer. I don't know. I'm so confused.
Okay, sorry. Let's be clear here. So Royal Match does 60 million a month in March, right? Royal Kingdom does 8 million. This is a very small game relative to Royal Match.
And it's not.
It takes some time to build up DAU, to collect daily active customers. It takes time to build that. But to your point, it just seems like a strange way to launch this one.
Yeah, this is basically almost a launch campaign to some degree, given how the scale of this thing.
So it's like a launch 2.0. And so what I love about this is that they worldwide launched in November. It's been 5 months. The game has been out. It's been performing. They've been adding features. And they're doing what I like to say is the slow and steady wins the race. You have no leaky bucket. You're checking your retention. You're ready to start pouring the dollars into the top of the funnel to get players into it.
Well, they did in the last time, right? We looked at those charts in terms of their download ranking. It's exactly the playbook they used on their last title. Understand the shape of your ARPU curve, make sure things are solid, and then hit the go button. No pun intended.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about creative. So AppsFlyer has a new report. It's called the State of Creative Optimization 2025. It's one of the first kinds of reports that they've done like this. They took a look at over 1 million creative variations, 2.5 billion in spend, some really interesting charts. So they have benchmarks for share of cost, IPMs, retention across verticals. I really like how they're bucketing this into specific user motivations and hooks and UGC. So there's not been a lot of reports on deep dives into creative that's really broken this out. Like creative, I think we've all talked about this. In performance marketing and user acquisition, it's all about creative because you have to figure out what is actually driving all of the algorithms. So in here, they go through each category. They got casual, mid-core. And so you can look at your specific category and dig into that. They have some experts talking. So more on this in the newsletter. We just got it, so I haven't had a chance to like really dig in, but love to see these kinds of free tools. Thank you, AppsFlyer. Love it. Kresh, you want to talk about Discord? Speaking more of ads.
Right. So Jason Citrin is stepping down as CEO of Discord after 13 years. I did forget that he was actually the CEO of Hammer and Chisel, which was another MOBA failure in gaming. I forgot about that. So they have appointed this guy, Humam Sakini. He's a former Activision Blizzard vice chairman as new CEO. Citrin was known for starting OpenFaint and building Discord from an earlier venture, as I said, on Hammer and Chisel. He has basically guided this company to over 200 million active users. And they tried to expand beyond gaming and go more broad, then also try to monetize and try to distribute games. They've tried a lot of different fucking things in order to generate revenue over the years, but have actually failed. So just to be clear, right? Sakini, this is what's so crazy. He helped scale King's operating income at the time with a lot of changes in terms of how they delivered their game. He worked on Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush, and he's expected to lead Discord to this next growth phase, right? They say that they have no plans for his IPO, which is complete bullshit, but they are basically hiring Sakini as a step towards that possibility.
Plans, because Jason came out in an interview and said, like, obviously this is what it means, but just no immediate plans.
It's all this legal bullshit. Like, they just can't talk about it. Right. Okay. So here's my take on this really quick. So this is a fucking coup d'etat, right? Ultimately, right? So Hamam is a fucking animal, right? Like he is ex-McKinsey. He's trained by the best of the best, Bobby Kotick, right? He's replacing this entrepreneur founder to help drive monetization and microtransactions and every other motherfucking thing they could do to make money on this company in order to make an IPO, right? Period. End of sentence. That's it, right? And so this guy is out because he spent the last 15 years building an amazing product. I don't want to discount that at all, but he never was able to actually generate revenue, right? So this has been a money pit for years and years. They have raised almost $1 billion of funding over the years, like $1 billion, right? The last valuation was $15 billion. The investors are basically saying enough is enough. We need to make some fucking money and we need an exit, right? This is the type of shit that these fucking VCs are after, right? We want to fucking exit 15 bill, and that's it. And so they just hired this guy because they are generating profits. And so as we talked about a few weeks ago, they are starting to do advertising, which is something that this guy, as well as like Baczynski, or whatever the guy's name from Roblox is, they were adamantly against ads from the very beginning, right? That this is never happening on our platform. Twitch, same thing, right? But as Eric Seifert once said and continues to say, and one of the only things that guy has gotten right, no, I'm just kidding, is everything is a fucking ad network when you run out of ideas on something else to do to make money, right? And so, yes, this is an ad network, and that's what it should have been all along. And now they have the right guy to fight the good fight, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It is actually, I use it a lot more on, because I'm staring at my screen all day on my computer. I use a Mac and I was starting to see ads pop up. I guess I was in some sort of testing group. So Last of Us, for the show popped up on my computer. It was really cool. I was like, oh, look at this. I'm in the test group. It's super excited. And then, like I said earlier, mobile's coming in June. Actually, they had a press kit that went out. They had a really cool kind of, video using Brawl Stars, our favorite Brawl Stars. And so I think that this is something that every marketer is looking for a channel. Where else? Because all of you, money types, and all Phil does is yell at me and say, Jen, how do you attribute anything? Here, I heard that the pilot was completely sold out, like within a week or not even that long of them announcing the pilot. Everyone was like, I want in. I can get my ad in front of gamers who love this stuff. I can target like specific kinds of other competitive games. So my prediction is it's going to be insanely expensive, but hopefully they've got the hooks in place where, you're going to be able to go whale hunting like the old days. So I'm excited about this. Let's see what happens in June. I know that Jules is over there from EA. I don't know. She is a rock star. She's the CRO. So I think...
Julie?
Yes. CRO. She joined a couple months ago. So you've got like an advertising gaming ninja. She left Unity to go here. And so I'm excited for them. I want to see what happens.
Yeah, this is hugely
Yes.
important. I mean, we talk about
Yes.
ads all the time. We need more inventory. Like mobile lives or dies on advertising, which we'll
Yes.
talk about later. And not only that, like Discord has these quests features, which is very similar to a lot of what's happening in the Web3 meta, which I know everyone's really excited about. But how can I get more engagement through an ad? You know, how can I reactivate people? How can I give them currencies or resources? Like a bunch of people have been playing with this. You know, if you're familiar with Prime Gaming, they've done a lot of this kind of giveaway type stuff. But the type of ad units you can have on Discord are really unique and really engaging. And I think the thing that's going to be fantastic for Discord is that they have a lot of data, right? They know what your preferences are when it comes to games. The only thing they don't have is your spending profile, which is the most important thing when it comes to targeting, is where you're spending money. But I think if they're still able to get what Discord servers you're on, I think there's an opportunity here for some pretty good targeting.
Let's see. I mean, Reddit's coming along as well. We don't often talk about Reddit. It's the same idea. Back in the day, you know, when I've tested Reddit, it's just so expensive. It was never worth it in terms of ROAS. However, if they can figure that out and get better, they IPO'd and they're on fire. When you search on Google and everyone searches now and says on Reddit, so much of the traffic is coming from Google's change in search. That's another one. If they can get the CPMs and CPIs down, another channel for people to check out. I haven't seen it resonate yet.
This was really disappointing to me because Jason, the founder, being able to take this company to IPO, I think would have given gaming a seat at the tech table. So right now you've got, you know, Airbnb, Facebook, like a lot of these tech companies still have their founder CEOs with them. Stripe, you know, the Stripe brothers is another example. And I thought this was an opportunity for us to get a seat at that table as one of these influential techies. And not only that, it's becoming more and more important when we think about public policy. Like these guys are flexing their public policy muscles more and more frequently. And I think us having a seat at that table was really important. And the fact we're not going to have that, I think, is really disappointing. Like we still don't have, I think, a good figurehead for this industry in the same way that Zuck or the Coulson brothers are for their respective industries. Like Bobby Kotick, not a founder, but not someone I think you want to be the head of the industry. Chip Hawkins left, so you know he doesn't count. David Lazuki from Roblox, he's a founder, but he doesn't give a shit about gaming. Didn't start the company for gaming to begin with. Physicists, education, experiences. Remember, they don't even call it games anymore, right? On Roblox. It's experiences. And of course, it's tied up in all the App Store rules, but I don't think they were against that anyways. I don't think they've ever cared about gaming. And then, of course, we have Gabe, right? Gabe should be our figurehead. Gabe should be the one going out and batting for us and hanging out with all these techies. But at the end of the day, he's just in New Zealand hanging out on his yacht. And so I'm still waiting for us to figure out how we're going to get a seat at the table and have more influence broadly. But like we're excluded from all these techie conversations. Like Silicon Valley exists in a different sphere than we do. And I'm just bummed because Jason was a real one, right? As you mentioned, Eric, like he was into MOBAs. He was launching MOBA studios left and right and pivoted Discord and then repivoted Discord back to gaming, right? And so I'm really bummed because we continue to kind of not have, I think, a good figurehead and have more influence, I would say, in culture and in policy.
What about Tim?
Yeah, I don't think they go public with Tim Sweeney at the helm. That's just
you think they're going to bring in someone new? Mr. Kress,
if they ever go public, yeah.
Ooh, of course they're going to go public. They got the Disney money now.
He is definitely not a CEO of a publicly traded company.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing is the market wants more business operators for these game companies that have traditionally been very creative led. And I think just in general, you're starting to see founders be moved aside into the Aloha suite of the board and the advisor slot for operators to come in and really run the things. I don't know. That's what I feels like is going on in the space. But Krish, you would know more than me. Just in general, right? I mean, didn't we talk about this with Supercell when they brought in the CFO who was the indicator that they wanted to go and be a grown-up company?
Look, I'm very flippant and very obnoxious about these type of things. And I'm half joking, really. Like, I think it's sad that Jason's can't bring this thing to the light, right? Like, you lose a lot when you get rid of these founders, but you lose the core of what the companies are. But when you become a publicly traded company, it is a completely different skill set required and a different mindset even. And if there's anything else on that, I will let you know, but it looks like Philip has it covered. All right. So for NetEase, NetEase announced that they're making another executive departure. Simon Zhu, who is the president of Global Investments and Partnership, he's leaving after 12 years. Definitely a friend of the podcast, someone that I've met a few times. He led studio investments, including Bungie, Niantic, Devolver, Second Dinner, and a bunch of other things. And the guy who managed the NetEase Blizzard relationship is taking over his responsibilities. I apologize. The other departure is Matthew Weisinger, who is the former head of publishing of North American Studios. So my take on this is what? First of all, Simon Zhu is a good guy. Like, I've met him a couple of times. He's a really nice guy, super gamer, whatever. And he has been involved and supported a lot of game investment in the space. Like, and I personally think he does it a lot better than most of the venture capitalists that we talk about on this podcast, right? So again, a huge sponsor of gaming in the West, and he made tons of great investments, as we talked about. But what they're not talking about, they were also, NetEase was an LP in a lot of VCs, including makers, right? I'm sure they invested in others as well, but I'm just not sure which ones. I guess the other thing I want to say is that part of the reason that they were doing a lot of this investments, and if you think about it from a game theory perspective, is part of the reason they do all these investments is to get access to what the fuck is going on in the space, right? So the more companies that you're invested in, the more VCs that you're part of, the more information flow about you, what's happening in the market. That's part of the reason that a lot of these strategics and big companies, particularly in China, were making investments. And so in theory, perhaps they've extracted all the knowledge that they need. So now that they can bring everything back to China and start building shit, right?
Interesting theory.
I mean, that's one approach.
The investment as espionage tactic. I like it. Okay.
No, that is a fact. I mean, that the reason that they do a lot of these investments is to figure out what the fuck is going on in the space. Like gives them information flow. All right. But as we talked about before in this podcast months ago, right, when these rumors were swirling, particularly after GDC, is that this is part of the CEO, the billionaire guy who became CEO of this company, pulling out of the West, right? Like, he's basically pulling out of the West because Americans are lazy and expensive, right? We don't work enough and we're too expensive. And so they're basically taking all these teams and associated with it and getting rid of them and bringing back the investments to China and other parts of the world, right? So I wish Simon the best. I've said all my interactions with him are super positive. I think just the kind of the nature of the new strategy at NetEase. So there you go.
No, I agree with you. I met him once, and some of his posts on LinkedIn are when the Blizzard relationship in NetEase ended. And then when it came back, you can tell, I think he posted, it's like, I have 30,000 hours in StarCraft, and wow, it was like really amazing. And, to our earlier conversation with Discord is when you have a leader that truly loves and engages and understands our industry and how it works and operates, it's always a bit sad to lose them for the bean counters, because there is an art and a science to what we do. Super sad. I think I'm super curious of what's going to happen with NetEase in gaming in general. They're pulling out of so much in gaming.
Hold on. I did hear people were really worried about money drying up for a lot of these venture capital firms. Like, we're already seeing pullback on venture capital from an investment perspective, but raising new funds, a lot of these funds, gaming funds specifically, were funded by Chinese companies and Asian companies that were LPs in these funds. So they're not going to pull their money out per se, but they're definitely not putting more money in, right? So it's going to get harder and harder for VCs to raise money for gaming. That was what I was hearing at GEC.
All right. Phil, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so Convoy has been reporting on the relative share of gaming venture capital that is going to AI. And we had another chart that came from PitchBook, which was also looking at the overall venture activity in AI. So in 2025 Q1, the overall amount of VC funding that went to AI was 71%. The amount of gaming venture capital that went to AI related projects was 10%. And it's been basically relatively flat since 2021, our share of AI investments. I will say this is not a good sign for this industry if VCs do not look at AI and gaming as an opportunity. In fact, I'm extremely disturbed by this because we've been going through like the last year on this podcast. I know we can be negative Nellies, but we are trying to search for growth, the eternal quest for growth. And if you're telling me that, crypto's not going to be it, you see it, if all of these things are not it, AI was supposed to be where we really hitch some wagon. But if you're telling me that we aren't seeing an acceleration in the amount of venture capital in gaming that's going to AI, I'm extremely troubled by that. And I think this also reflects the flip side of what it means to be where art meets science, which is that we can't optimize all of our pipelines with AI in the same way I think a SaaS company could or a more traditional tech company could, right? There's still parts of the supply chain which are going to be resistant to AI or not going to be as optimizable or have as much margin as we might see in other industries. And I think this is one of the first pieces of evidence we're really seeing around this. And so I'm worried. Let's keep track of this. Convoy also just released a report today that did say overall venture activity in gaming is still, it's not down in 2025 Q1. So there's something going on. We're not totally dead, but I am really troubled by this.
Not down. The fuck does that even mean, dude? It's
I'm
at, like,
trying
the
to find some
lowest
silver
level.
lining.
That is like, come on. Let's just
When
stop.
we talk about Inzoi, we can talk about silver lining.
Oh, well,
I don't
okay.
even.
Okay.
Attention app and game developers. Are you ready to unlock the secrets behind the world's top performing apps and games? With Sensor Tower, you get the ultimate competitive edge, whether it's breaking into new markets, fine-tuning your UA strategies, or boosting monetization. Dive into data like never before, track global trends across app stores, analyze market-leading in-app purchase and in-app ad strategies, and benchmark your performance with real-time insight. The best part, Sensor Tower doesn't just deliver data, it helps you turn it into action. With intuitive tools and expert analysis, it's everything you need to make smarter, faster decisions. Thousands of app and game studios, from indie creators to global giants, trust Sensor Tower to help them win. So why not you? Start your free trial today at sensortower.com. That is sensortower.com.
This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they'll interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance.
All right. Well, let's get into shooters first because it's, is that growth? Or is there growth in shooters, Phil?
No,
Maybe?
not really at all.
No?
So,
All right.
so
All right.
two mobile shooter launches this week. So we have Once Human from NetEase. If you remember, this is a title they've already released on Steam, survival crafting game. It's done fairly well. It's kept a lot of its DAU around, and so they decided to port the game to mobile. This is NetEase, by the way. So far, I would say it doesn't seem to be going well, and I think further is evidence that pre-registrations are a stupid metric. I would put it right there next to wish lists. I would actually even say it's stupider than wish lists, particularly because you have people going out and running UA campaigns for pre-registrations. But Once Human gained 30 million pre-registrations, and right now the downloads are around 2 million. Not a good sign. So then you've got Delta Force. And if you remember Delta Force, I had that interview with, one of the studio heads at Team Jade with Inside of Timmy that's making this. They've already released the game on Steam. It's had incredibly stable PSU. And they had a mobile version of Delta Force, which has already been released in China. So this is the global version. And so they had 25 million pre-registrations and 17 million downloads so far. So, I would say there doesn't seem to be a correlation when we add up all the evidence together. And I think Delta Force's downloads are probably not related to pre-registration. And so far, both games are doing... Once Human, I think, isn't going to have legs in the West, but it looks like Delta Force has a little bit more legs. We are looking right now at daily active users between both of them. And I also threw in Call of Duty Mobile there. It's hard to benchmark this. Call of Duty Mobile, by the way, in terms of active users, has actually been on a slow decline since really 2021, but revenue has been pretty steady, but that's a separate narrative. But Delta Force is kind of creeping up around where Call of Duty numbers were. This is one to keep track of. I would say the tech on Delta Force was super impressive. This is a large-scale battle royale game. It has an extraction mode as well. But to be in a map with over, 63 other people on mobile is still an incredible experience. And I just want to pour one out for Battlefield Mobile. This could have been you. Could have been you. Industrial Toys, they made some mistakes in some early versions of this game before just really trying to port Battlefield over to mobile. The one last thing I want to say about this, and I think we didn't get a chance to cover this when it comes to Delta Force, is that they have a peer-to-peer marketplace when it comes to gun skins, very similar to CSGO, And we also mentioned that the Rainbow Six Siege, they have a peer-to-peer marketplace as well. And it's kind of been this subtle, behind the scenes trend. Very curious to see whether or not we'll see more marketplaces in shooters. I'd be really looking at Apex Legends if they were to go this direction, particularly because EA already has all the auction house tech from FIFA, but curious to see how the auction house will play out with mobile now too.
We got to break this thing down a little bit more, because the fact of the matter is that these games are amazing. I downloaded both of them, Once Human and Delta Force. And so the fidelity and the development costs of these things were fucking insane, right? But Delta Force in specific has been in China for quite a while, right? Relatively. Yeah. It just launched in the US. And China is like 97% of its revenue, life to date so far. But in the US, it's a disaster, right? Absolute fucking disaster. Like you can see 10 million downloads, 1.4 million in revenue, like in the first few weeks, and it's going down already. Like, I don't know. This doesn't seem like it's going to have any legs at all, right?
Oh, for a game. I don't think it'll have any. They'll have no legs in the West. I mean, we've already known that shooters beyond Call of Duty have no legs in the West.
Right, okay. That's
complete consensus.
Once Human makes absolutely no sense for mobile in the West, period. Like that game is not a mobile game at all. It is a PC console game. So these games are completely out of touch with what actually is doing well in the market, in my humble opinion. Right? I wish Adam was here just to either confirm or deny my assumptions. All right. Moving on to things that don't make sense. I need this to be explained to me because I'm kind of baffled by this situation, because it's really unclear to me after reading this. It says Blizzard reportedly taps Nexon to publish Overwatch Mobile and StarCraft. So are they actually just publishing it? Or are they developing the games and publishing it? Or what's exactly happening here? Because either way, it doesn't make sense. Like, why can't Blizzard publish their own fucking games, right? Or is it only in China? Like, what's happening here? Anybody have an idea?
The only thing I pulled from this quote was Blizzard has been bidding since the fourth quarter of last year for major Korean game companies offering content development rights using the StarCraft IP and the Korean and Japanese service rights for Overwatch Mobile as a package deal. So
it's development. It's got to be development. They don't have the staff for this, Eric. They don't have the staff for this or the expertise. This isn't just rights. This is they're going to go out and develop StarCraft Mobile. They're going to go out and develop Overwatch Mobile. This isn't going to be Blizzard in-house.
Korean and Japanese service rights for Overwatch Mobile.
Oh.
That's publishing, guys.
Offering content development rights.
Okay, StarCraft put that over here. For Overwatch Mobile, what I read from this sentence is publishing in Japan and Korea.
Okay.
So StarCraft, I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. And probably, right? Isn't Korea one of the number one countries for StarCraft? So sure. Maybe have them take a swing at that. You don't have a US based team, but what it looks like is somebody else is developing Overwatch Mobile, and it would be published by whoever this is. Who are we talking about? Nexon. Which makes sense, right? In Korea and Japan.
Okay. That makes total sense. But to the extent that they're outsourcing any game development for mobile, is that happening? Is Overwatch being developed by a third party? The Overwatch mobile game? And I didn't even know there was a StarCraft mobile game, I'll be honest. I know there's an Overwatch one, but
I would be surprised if it wasn't the Call of Duty setup where you have Western product management and you have Eastern development. Seems like probably where I'd guess Overwatch Mobile will go.
Okay. All right.
And they did that for Diablo, right? They did it for Diablo too.
No. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's missed opportunities, but whatever, it is what it is.
This makes a ton of sense. Yeah. This is your strategy. They just shipped it to Asia. This is brilliant. This is exactly what they should be doing. How that you get plausible deniability when it comes to monetization. Stuff that shit full of loot boxes.
All right.
Fucking loot box. Let's go.
Anyway, I guess my point is I agree with you, Phil. I've been saying that for quite a while. Don't bother making games yourself, Blizzard. You can't make mobile games, period, end of sentence. Outsource it. Having said that, this fucking particular press release really had me confused. So
I don't know if it was a press release or I don't know, this videogamechronicle.com.
Oh, I see.
This sounded like some backroom reporting, but we'll keep an eye on all of that. Enzoy, Phil, and please, you got to make sure after you share your chart that you share the picture I made for you.
Well, I think Eric dropped in a quote here from the Crafton report, the quarterly earnings, that it was the fastest selling title in the company's history. Wow, Eric. Coming around to Enzoy. What?
Did not say that. The fastest selling, they have 5,000 users. 5,000 users, dude. Concede, Philip. This is a failure. Absolute failure.
Whoa. Absolute failure is some really strong language. So hold up here. They've already sold 1 million units. So that puts them at what? Around 35 million maybe. And by the end of the year, 1.5, maybe 2. Look, I agree with you. This thing has been lukewarm. We went over some of the things they could have done better. I would say the most important thing they need to do now is get this game in a much better shape when it comes to engagement and being able to sell more copies, because they're never going to get to a DLC model where this is right now. I do agree with you on that.
Just for the record, dude, Krafton is an absolutely massive company, right? They generate $1.4 billion from mobile alone. So, like, this is absolute mice nuts, dude, for them. So this is a failure, an abject failure.
The story's not over. The story's not. Do you have to share this fucking picture, Jen?
One of my clients actually.
For those only listening, in order to concede, I put a plumb bob, which is the little green diamond thing, on Phil's LinkedIn photo, just to troll him a little bit on this, since he's been Inzoi crazed.
Okay, moving on. Game Changers podcast. First of all, highly recommend Game Changers podcast for anybody that's interested. Mitch and Blake talking about
Unanimous.
the industry.
Unanimous from
awesome.
Lots of anecdotes, lots of OG shit, right? I've been listening really since they started. Great podcast.
Yeah.
Grainecraft, sorry. Great anecdotes from their perspectives on the industry. I generally agree with everything they're saying. They're kind of like saying the quiet parts out loud a lot of times. And they're very straightforward and matter of fact about their opinion. But it was this latest one, or the one, I think the first or second one this season, this is the third season, that they made this assertion that really got me thinking. I was just kind of in my head all weekend about this thing. So I wanted to bring this to the group and discuss, debate. So Mitch's argument is that the distribution duopoly from Google and Apple caused consumer preferences for high LTV games, right? He views that the distribution mechanism shaped by this duopoly determined what games were introduced to the customers. And that this, in turn, shaped what players preferred. So what he's contending is that new methods of discovery are now required to create a more vibrant ecosystem with innovation in the space. And they also suggested that Steam is creating the same dynamics on PC. And of course, their solution is their biggest investment, which is Discord, right? So this brings back the Discord thing. So, and generally speaking, obviously he's pushing his own book. So usually I would just ignore it and say, okay, a venture capitalist is pushing his own book because Discord is a solution for the problem on PC and for Steam, right? But I don't know. It just got me really thinking, is this really the reason that we have like basically 4 or 5 genres that dominate this platform? So my assumption has always been that consumer preference came first, right? Players have been deciding what games they want to play, what mechanics they're willing to spend on. And given the high LTV nature of these games and the high spenders, the whale type driven economies, there's only a few mechanics that actually can drive spend. And the whales tend to prefer casino, puzzle, 4X, and RPG games. So general assumption on this is that the whales have been driving the genre preference because that's the only people that are spending money, and that's the only market that really matters in the space. So do you think it's Apple, Google's duopoly that's at fault? So what do you think, Philip?
I don't think they said that the duopoly has changed consumer preferences. And I think that, the wording here is really important. And so the closest I could get when listening to the podcast again, and for those listening at home, this is 422 on the timestamp, is that they say there's this race to the highest ROI category, casino, match 3, etc. Because the UA spending required to bring those games to mass market scale forces you out of innovative content into these tried and true play patterns. They talk about it again in 26-17. They say the dark side of free-to-play and IEP started to accelerate the UA and allowed for elastic pricing and whale hunting on the platform. I honestly can't even follow their logic on what they're saying here. Because of course, when you have an LTV that's X number, then UA in a relatively frictionless market, which is what mobile is, you're going to bid up UA to LTV. That's not a dark side of anything. That's just how a market that has very little friction works. Like this has a lot of comparables to perfect competition model in economics. We have a market with very easy exit and entry. We have a market with really lightning fast user acquisition where we can calculate UA and LTV at any moment. I think they totally get this story backwards. This isn't anything about the duopoly or platform incentives. This has always been about user acquisition. This is the story of mobile. It is about user acquisition and distribution. The platforms, existed or not, this wouldn't have happened without them. And they don't provide any explanation for why this doesn't happen on Steam, right?
I'll tell you.
Because they're talking about leaderboards and how leaderboards were this discovery system. And when they took that away, discovery went away. And that leaderboards are really this perverse incentives. But none of this exists on Steam.
Attribution. It's because for the first time ever on mobile, and it's everything you love, is as a marketer, I now have to report on the ROI of the spend that I have. And so everyone got addicted to ROAS and direct attribution before, crush your favorite thing, IDFA. When on mobile, we knew exactly how to go out with a sniper and get that whale and take them down. That created, in a sense, a vicious cycle of performance marketing and UA being, go out and find me more of this. And so that's the piece for me, is this direct attribution that is the link and the cause of the chicken and the egg, is that fact. That does exist on Steam.
But this is what was keeping me up at night, is that it's the nature of free to play, and the way people spend on free to play is the reason that this stuff works, right? Apple did everything they could to promote premium games during the early days of Apple ecosystem, right? They showcased them on the stage for all their keynotes. They fucking market the shit out of them on the store, Dude, they even still have fucking editorial on the store trying to showcase these bullshit games. But that's not what resonated. And what I know and everyone else knows or should know in this industry, and I think this may be the disconnect, is that this is not a premium model, right? This is a whale model, right? Where 3 to 4% people convert, and the top 5% of that 3 to 4%, so a fraction of a percent of the people that actually download your game, are generating the majority of your revenue, right? And so you really only give a shit about that small group of people that are spending insane amounts of money, right? And so what I'm trying to say is that the mechanics that are built around 4X, casino, puzzle, and RPG are catering to that group, right? So it's irrelevant, the different distribution methods. Frankly, Apple and Google have nothing to do with the distribution methods, all Facebook and AppLovin and others, right, that are doing the performance marketing. But it's the tastes of that audience that's willing to spend is what's driving this business, not the distribution. Distribution has nothing to do with it, except for the fact that they can target these motherfuckers that are spending insane amounts of money. You know what I'm saying? So this is what was keeping me up at night, right?
I think it's a chicken and the egg, because I think you're right. And I think, I'm right. If you don't have the play that allows there to be whales, and then the platform allows you to hunt the whales, downloads have cratered since, the loss of ATT, and how difficult it is to go out and find players. Revenue has been increasing because games have been figuring out more dark arts to get people to spend more.
So if we had all these different alternative distribution mechanisms out there, do you think anything would change in the ecosystem? Would it become more innovative? Would we see new genres? Would we see new innovations at all? No. It's just going to go back to the same thing that people are willing to spend money on, because that's the only people. There's only a few people that are willing to spend money on this free to play at scale, make the model work. Right.
Yeah, and I have consensus with you on that point, Eric. And I think that's what hurts their argument the most, is that if this duopoly didn't exist, well, would things be that much better? No, we'd still have the same LTV UA game, which is that you have LTVX and you bid up UA up until UA equals LTV. That equation in perfect market still works. I have no idea what they're talking about here.
Yeah. So a Discord is not a solution. It's just going to be another part of the problem, right? In theory,
just another
in terms of
acquisition
innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just another acquisition channel.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
Agree.
This is what the argument was killing me, was that I was like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe this is reinforcing these models and these systems that are, extracting as much money as possible from the whales, right? Like, if the UA environment is the one that's actually causing that, that's interesting. But I think it's just the player preference of those that really are willing to spend, right? Until player preference changes.
It's even the inverse of what they mentioned, right? Like, if we were talking about, would things be different if there were alternative distribution sources? Well, yeah, we'd go back to a pre-ATT world. Like, really, Mitch and Blake should be blaming Apple and Google for the ATT situation. It's about distribution. That's what caused all this fuckery when we talk about fake ads. But they're trying to say, like, free-to-play IEP and loot boxes are the dark side. No. Fake ads and the modern state of mobile user acquisition is the dark side. And that was caused by the duopoly. But ATT is the problem here, not this other shit they're trying to mention. This always existed. I have no idea what they're talking
That's
about.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
what I'm
No,
saying.
All right.
There is the play into the dopamine. It's why casinos and gambling have addicts. And so I do think that games have been adopting more of those dark mechanics.
So my other counter to their argument is that, look, the tastes and the genres that are doing well on console and PC are still hugely, like 85% of the traffic is from games that have existed. So my other point is that PC and console is in the same situation, right? They've matured to a level in which 85% of the use base is using the same type of genres, the same games that have been existing forever, right? So I would argue that additional ways of finding these customers is not going to change what consumers are preferring, right? Even on console and PC, right? Like the nature of the platform itself is determining what genres do well. It's not a question of discovery and distribution. And so Discord is not going to help that either, right? We're not going to see more innovation on the space because Discord comes on, because the preferences of the consumer have already been stated until we have a new platform.
The causal arrow goes both ways, right? So let's take a look at hybrid casual. Do you think hybrid casual exists as a consumer preference or as a function? Obviously, at some level it does. But do you think hybrid casual is more of a function of institutional incentives, or do you think that's more of a function of consumer preference?
Both.
In
I
that
have
case,
a
it
hard
would be both.
time, disentangling these two things because of the motivations of the ad system. And hyper casual makes money off of the 5 ads that they show you right away. They shove it in front of your face everywhere you are because everything's an ad platform, as you like to say. They're on TikTok, they're on social. Oh, this cute little time waster game looks really fun. It looks really simple for me to pick up and play. I want to give it a shot.
I guess same thing with squad RPG, right? Like, consumer preferences may be for squad RPGs, but they've been in decline because the user acquisition isn't there anymore, and they haven't been able to pivot to the same fake UA strategies that 4X does, right? 4X would have been killed if they didn't pivot to this, right? So UA and distribution does play a large role in what genres succeed and which ones don't.
Yeah, which is why, and Crest pointed this out, if you look at all of the art styles on 4X games that are working, what is working? Whiteout Survival, Last War, King Shot looks like a ripoff of an art style of Supercell. There's a massive 4X monetization machine behind these more approachable art styles. And that's like a lot of the thesis of why Supercell games have worked so much is they have this really fun, casual, appealing brand on top of a cash machine.
My point again is that any new distribution, it has nothing to do with distribution, right? It has to do with consumer preference from a spending perspective. And so, yes, they're making more casual games, but the underlying mechanics of these games are identical almost to the older 4X games. They're just casting a broader net and bringing these whales in, right?
But I do think that there was innovation. I mean, this hybrid nature of I'm going to put a very simple mechanic on top of hybrid casual. Like that is oddly an innovation.
All right, fine. Innovation.
I think they're intertwined.
Yes. I was a little disappointed, I'll be honest, at this particular podcast because I think it didn't make sense what he was talking about. I don't think Discord is a solution. It's just going to perpetuate the problem. There's no innovation on gameplay that's going to happen because Discord is a new distribution channel. I'm just saying that. Like, it is just going to be the same situation as all these games are the same games that they were like 10 years ago in terms of the same mechanics that are monetizing, these same gotcha energy, power creep, all these same things are going to be the same thing making money of this small percentage. And we're talking about millions of people in the US that actually spend money like fucking drunken sailors on these games. That's the audience. And that's what you're optimizing against.
I actually think they're correct in until there is a new distribution model that allows new creative and innovation to flourish, we are stuck in the system that we are in today. Discord, what we talked about today, it's an ad platform. I don't know what that platform is as a place for new games to kind of flourish and live. I mean, I was there at the beginning of mobile where I was selling Scrabble for $6.99. And then I had to go in front of Hasbro and be like, hey, we're going to make more money if we take Scrabble for free. And, the CEO was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what do you mean? What is free to play? That is because of the nature of the platform and because everything's an ad network. You have to go, it's scale. That's what this distribution model lent us. If there is a new distribution model that pops up, I do think that would allow for innovation of gameplay to flourish, depending on what that is.
This is what got me really kind of confused. Is I don't think it changes one thing. I don't think MOBAs are all of a sudden going to be successful on mobile in the West because we have new distribution mechanisms.
I didn't say that.
I'm just saying in general, the consumer that's spending money on these games, like these lunatics that are spending tens of thousands of dollars, are not spending it on MOBAs with cosmetic economies. Like that's just, there's not a broad group of people spending on free to play to justify these type of gameplay mechanics that you're talking about, right? Or these new genres or new gameplay mechanics. That's just not the nature of the mobile free to play system, period, right? Regardless of distribution. Let's say Apple gets rid of the 30%.
Yeah.
Right. ATT comes back, right? Because they get nothing's going to change.
The point is that distribution affected what genre succeeded and which ones failed, right? That's our central point of disagreement. You think consumer preferences drive everything. And I would argue, yeah, that does drive a lot, but user acquisition is a really important part of finding an audience. And that helps give life to mechanics that would not otherwise exist because they can find an audience that is small enough when you have targeting. When you don't have targeting, this is your words, Eric. You remember you had to go casual. You had to go casual on the front end to get people into the funnel, right?
Yeah.
So it's harder to find these specific
I'm not
markets.
talking, again, I'm talking about what people are spending money on, not what people are downloading and playing.
How would you explain the decline in squad RPG revenue? In Asia, they're shitting out these AAA bajillion dollar. We're talking about ZZ, MiHoYo.
Zenla's, yeah.
No, but
Zenla's-
those are not geared
Lilith.
to the West, the collection mechanic type games. They haven't innovated on the games that have done well, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and Marvel Strike Force. Like there hasn't been a new game in that category that has taken to capture the hearts and minds of that audience. And I think a lot of those likely the spenders are all moving back to 4X. It's kind of what it looks like. Like those are capturing the same, maybe that same whale audience.
Isn't that because 4X is now adding character collections inside?
Right.
And so
Exactly.
4X is like the ultimate
Shut up, Breaking Bad.
hybrid. You know, it's like, but seriously, like when I was playing Whiteout Survival, I was like, oh my God, there is like old school squad RPG character collection involved in this, just like everything else, just like the mini games, just like I felt like when I was playing Whiteout, and it's been a while, I'm sure when we look at King Shot and all these other, like they are now shoving everything into these game experiences that keep you involved in collecting and continuing your collection. That's where I feel like there has been innovation and changes in gameplay because of the distribution model pushing that. I don't think we love where it's going because it, you know, in a sense, like we hate, you know, hyper casual because it was, how do I get you to stay for 30 minutes so I can show you 10 ads and monetize you off platform, which I think we, as people that love games, I think we felt gross about what that was.
My whole thing is that because the whales constitute the majority of the revenue on the App Store, full stop, like it's the games and genres that cater to that audience, despite whatever fucking distribution mechanism that you have, whether it's, you know, fucking Discord or anything else that will see success in the marketplace, right?
So
you don't cater to that audience that's willing to spend $10,000 a year on a game, like it's over.
okay, well, two things. One is I think there are a lot of companies that made a lot of money on ads, and we won't know that because Sensor Tower has, you know, that's not exactly what shows up. However, two, what is going to change that we need to keep an eye on, and I know you love and hate this topic, is web shops. As I talk to more people that have mostly mid-core games that mostly service the whales, to exactly what you're saying, those people are moving off platform to these web shops. In some cases, as you know, we've all heard, 40% of game revenue can come from a web shop. That is no longer being tracked in what we are seeing, in a sense, on Sensor Tower. And so I'm actually wondering, are we losing sight of actually what's really going on in the industry? From
that
a
actually
revenue
reinforces
perspective?
my point, right? Because the people that are moving over are the whales that are
Yes.
spending insane amounts of money, right? And they're still spending on the same games that they spent on 10
Isn't
years
that
ago.
a distribution innovation?
That's actually the opposite of innovation. That's like sticking with exactly the games that are doing well now. This is my point. It's like you have a new distribution mechanism. That's not going to improve discovery and capture new audiences and capture new gameplay.
I mean, hyper casual is one example. Squad RPG is another. The last one I'd probably put is like the failure of the design home genre to launch. I think could have been a sacrificial lamb of ATT as well. Like I really thought design home in that genre would expand, and I think ATT probably played a big role in stunting the success of products like Redecor as another example.
Well, no, the LTVs were not high enough to justify the spend, right?
You can always lower CPI. You can always lower CPI, right? I mean, that's the other That's the flip side, right? That's what could have made this genre viable, right? If you can find an audience, CPIs can be lower, and you can still hold LTV constant, and your genre can persist.
That makes sense to me, right? Is that if we did have ways of capturing those audiences that are lower, your assumption is that if without AT&T, we could have actually had lower CPIs to grow the design home audience?
I think it's one example, and it's speculation on my part. I think there's a million things on Redecor we could talk about, but that's something I've always been curious is about why this genre didn't take off. It's a very particular market, and I think we need highly targeted creative to be able to continue to have that genre really succeed. And it hasn't, right? It's been design home, and design home's been kind of on a decline for a really long time.
I mean, isn't it exactly what you're saying is there's nothing to spend money on for whales in those kinds of games?
There's a ton of things to spend money on. Not only that, you have e-commerce in those products too, which is also a really nice back end.
I would argue it the other way.
Yeah.
It's like the depth of spend is not there to justify the spending to find this
Correct.
audience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Versus spending the same amount of money and building the same type of game as a 4X game and capturing that audience, right? So the ROAS calc is just not there for design home versus 4X games.
I'm interested in that as a topic because you would imagine that how do so many people spend so much money on stupid puzzle games, which I am one of those people. I play the shit out of Royal Match and Royal Kingdom. I mean, for me, it's a fidget toy, but how do people spend money on like more lives, but not like I want to decorate my room? Is it because of the play pattern? Is it? I don't know.
Because it's a more particular audience. Match 3 is a very, I mean, people will use Match 3. They'll front end their creative with Match 3. Like AFK Journey had a freaking Match 3 game that you had to play when you downloaded a squad RPG, right? It's a much more broad appeal genre than Redecor or design home.
Yeah. So then that's the problem. Again, it goes to like, there is no innovation on the platform because it's all going to the, Crest, to what you're saying, the top 3 things that are working on, maybe we're all, I don't know.
The whole point of targeting, right? Just put aside mobile for a second. But the whole revolution of Facebook was that you could do hyper-targeted things, which gave rise to like all these PCG companies that are making like, particular shaving products or selling you razors, whatever it may be. But that wasn't necessarily a product of consumer preference. Obviously, the latent consumer preference was there, else it wouldn't sell. There has to be demand at some point. But what unlocked that possibility was being able to find these particular audience because hyper-targeting exists. We wouldn't have had all those PCG companies if we didn't have Facebook. And I think you can make the same parallels to here. Like there is a back and forth causal relationship between the two. All right, we got to fucking wrap this up.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed our debate. I think actually Mitch and or Blake is coming on a podcast with Mishka. I wish we could all be there.
Hold on. There's one more thing. I got to rake these guys over the coals.
God.
They claim that Genshin normalized loot boxes in the West.
Oh God.
I got a whole post coming on this. I'm not going to let them off the hook for that one.
That was circa 2012, dude. That was like, dude, that was not like Genshin. You're right. Totally.
Yeah, it happened a long time ago.
When I was listening to them saying that, I physically stopped in the street and was aghast. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's on podcast, you say things. Let's be charitable, but I'm not going to let them go on that one unless they do a correction. If they do a correction next episode, all will be forgiven.
All right. Well, Blake's in the Slack. Join the Deconstructor of Fun Slack channel, and you can message Blake for sure and see what he says. All right, everybody. We will see you next week.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you'd subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. Those